Everyone good? Everyone can see everything? Perfect. So I'm going to cover some super basic stuff. I'm not going to get into super complex investing, any type of stuff like that. I'm just going to do a very simple budgeting, importance of a budget, kind of the expenses, the savings that you want to prioritize when you're looking kind of long term, um, kind of maybe shifting your focus from short term type satisfaction to maybe a more long term goal, which is honestly the definition of investing. Just kind of foregoing consumption right now of going out, buying things that maybe make you happy now, but you're kind of hurting yourself in the long run. So we're going to hit on um, uh, that type of stuff. So I think it's going to be super easy to digest, and maybe you guys walk away with some basic tips and kind of guidance that'll help you after you get out of school. So really, what is a budget? So you're basically making a budget so that you are kind of illustrating what's coming in to your pocket and what's coming out. And you want to make sure that you're able to play offense. So what I mean by offense is I graduate, I get a job, my salary or my wages that I'm getting hourly, those are going to come into my bank account, and that's the offense. You're working, you're earning, and you're actually accumulating savings. And then you have your defense. So what I mean by this is you're going to go to the grocery store, you're going to spend. That money is going to go down. So every time you decide to kind of weigh the benefits of something you're going to buy, and you say, do I really need this? By not getting that item that you thought you really needed in that moment, you're playing defense because you're not spending away all the savings you've been working so hard to achieve. And basically what the budget's going to do is you're just making sure that you're not spending more than you're making. And if you are, you can look back and you can kind of look at your budget and see what areas did I spend more than I should have, and where could I maybe have saved, and where could I put more money based on my priorities. So in a budget, you're going to have those fixed expenses. So this basically means those items like rent, your insurance, which we probably don't have to worry about since you can be on your parents for a very long time. So that's not really a concern right now, but groceries, electricity when you're paying utilities, living with your friends at your apartment. Those are going to be the things that just pop up month after month, and you're kind of like, oh, I have to pay these. You're used to it. It's not something that's unexpected. The variable expenses, on the other hand, are those things that kind of hit you, and you're like, I'm gonna spend more on this month because for whatever reason. It could be you go to the grocery store and you have to buy a gift for someone. You're not going to be buying gifts every single month. So you're going to obviously have higher expenses in one month, and it's not going to be your typical expense. So like I was saying, if this will, oops. So the fixed expenses are usually going to be these non-discretionary, which basically you don't have as much, I would say, control. You have control, but these are the needs. So these are going to be the types of things like I was speaking on, your housing, your food, your insurance, student loan payment. They're the things you have to do. And I highlight retirement savings at the bottom here because for some people, this might be a discretionary, but it is very important that you shift your focus and put retirement savings as a priority, and you make it a non-discretionary expense. This should be something that you're forcing yourself to do, almost like forced savings, because as much as you want that money to maybe go out and eat out and have a good time, you're kind of neglecting to look at the 20 years, 30 years from now when you want to stop working, and just because you wanted that extra meal, or you wanted to who knows what, and now you don't have enough money to retire. So you kind of have to look at yourself and kind of prioritize retirement if it's not already at the top of your list. And as you can see, there's 401ks. The 403bs are probably if you are in the school of education and you want to work at a school, this is probably what you're gonna stumble upon. It's basically a 401k, but for a school or a nonprofit. So they're all the same idea. You're contributing and you're going to earn interest on that money. And I'll talk about how that interest can work for you later on. So the next type of expense is those discretionary type expenses. And these are the things like Netflix, shopping, Amazon. You see that package, or not that package, you see that product on Amazon that you think you really, really need. You probably don't. I mean, we're all guilty of it, but we have to have it. These are those things that you're going to spend maybe more on in a given month than you would normally. This would be, like I said, it's just all the things that you want to do, but not necessarily need to do. And these are a list of apps that maybe, I don't know how many of you in the chat have actually started a budget. I know you actually, I'm joking when I say this, you need to make money before you can budget your money. And I'm not really making anything right now. So a budget's probably not at the top of your list of priorities as a student, but it's going to become more important when you graduate and you're actually making a salary. But these are some of the apps. These will be posted, I believe, on the UA website for you guys to refer back to. So I don't need to go over these one by one, but if you guys ever come to the point where you're like, I think I really need to start budgeting, these are just some places to start and maybe look into. And they're really easy. They're on your phone. It's not like you have to go into Microsoft Excel and go and type all the formulas. They're so advanced now that you just type in what you're making, some of your expenses that you have each month, and it's going to tell you kind of where you're spending more in one area. And it's going to make it super visually appealing to the eye. So it's not going to be like super hard math, but I'll leave those there if you guys want to refer back to them. Let's see. So this is what I was talking about the surplus and the deficit. So basically a surplus, we've probably all heard, it's just having more. That's never a bad thing. If you have more money after you pay your bills, the number one thing I would recommend is putting that towards retirement or an emergency fund, which we'll talk about later on. But just because you have money left over after you paid your bills, don't go out and just spend it all and think of it as free money, because that could really help you if you started putting that away early and saving for retirement. And then on the other hand, we have the deficit, which means you're spending more than you're making, which probably means you're maxing out your credit cards and doing things like that, which is a real big no-no. And when you have a deficit, you're going to want to look at that budget. That's when the budget's going to come in handy. I can go look, oh, I spent, I don't know, $500 this month going out to eat and going out with friends. What could I have done and what could I do in the next month to kind of get that more balanced and get that that spending down a little bit more. But you always want to make sure that you put that retirement as that discretionary expense. So that's a bill. Consider that a bill. You want to just take that right out when you're making money. Consider it an expense. Don't wait until you do your whole calculation, you get to the bottom and you have money left over and you're like, oh, now that I have money left over now, I'm going to put it towards retirement. Make it a priority. So this is what I mean about saving early. And then not only can interest work against you, I don't know how many of you are finance majors, but basically compound interest just means that your interest will earn interest. So Chauncey, I don't know if you could maybe explain in terms of like an investing standpoint what interest is. when you put away your money into like a retirement account or something like that?
Yeah, one example I use, if you had put it in, let's say, an index fund that tracks the S&P 500 over 40 years, $100 will turn into thousands. And that's because every year it should earn a little bit of interest, and then the interest will make interest, just like you said, compound interest. And it's not a linear growth when you compound it. It's exponential. So you get a lot of the benefit towards the later years. So the earlier you start saving, the sooner your savings will start to grow exponentially.
And we'll show you an example of a scenario where someone starts early and then someone starts way later and the impact that can have. But right now, what I want to cover here is basically just looking at how compound interest can not only work for you, but it can also work against you. So if you have debt, credit card debt, you're going to get charged interest. And a lot of credit cards charge on a day, like a daily compounding. So they will charge tons of interest. And if you pay the minimum payment on your credit cards each month, basically what you're doing is you're just giving them money, and they're just going to keep taking advantage of the fact that you still have a balance on a due balance, and they're going to keep charging and charging and charging. The way to get around that would be, I put an example here. You can see this is if you made the minimum payment on your credit card. So $175. That's the minimum you can get away with without being in trouble. This is a payment and a half on your credit card each month. So you're paying more than they require you to pay. And this would be paying double. So by paying double, you're only going to pay $2,000 in interest. If you just pay the minimum and you leave that balance sitting there, they're going to take advantage of you. They're in the business of making money. They are going to, you can see right here on the left side, they're going to make $11,000 off you if you are lax and you don't pay off your credit card quickly. So the main thing I would say here is use your credit card as if it were a debit card. And what I mean by that is only spend what you can afford to pay off at the end of the month. You don't want to drive up that credit balance, because that's what they're going to accrue interest on. And you're ultimately going to pay more than what you're spending in the long term. So just pay it as soon as possible. Don't let it just sit there, or you're going to end up getting taken advantage of by the credit card companies. And just how making the minimum payment, like I said, there's going to be more interest to pay off, and you're going to be paying for 125 months if you just pay the minimum payment. Whereas if you were to pay that double payment, you'd have all your debt paid off in 37 months. So you see how much it can affect your finances if you just let that credit card debt keep building up. So this is another huge one. I keep talking about how making retirement should be a priority. There's no real answer. You're gonna kind of want an exact number on how much you should save. It really does depend. You're not gonna know what the stock market's gonna do. We saw this with COVID. We never knew that was gonna happen. So that would be future investment returns. We didn't know that was going to happen. People's 401ks tanked. People's retirement accounts tanked. But you would not have predicted that 5 years ago. You wouldn't know that was coming. So there's going to be a lot of things that kind of influence how much you're going to have to save. And you're not necessarily going to know the right answer to all those questions. You're not going to, some of them you can maybe get a good guess, but you're not going to know the right answer all the time. So just save as much as you can when you can. You get a bonus, you get a tax refund. Why not put it back into your savings? Don't just spend it and consider it, oh, I got free money, I'm going to go out and spend it. It's as if I never had it in the first place. Why don't you use that money and put it toward kind of like your long-term financial independence? So Lauren put together a list. Lauren, do you want to share what you found when you were just some stuff you guys can do while you're in school?
So I just thought this would be wicked relatable to all of us, as most of us being college students. So tips for saving in college would just be never go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Kind of self-explanatory, but you will probably buy more if you're shopping on an empty stomach. I have done it plenty of times. And this one seems kind of unusual, I find. But honestly, me and my housemates split groceries and it's so cheap. Like there's four of us. It might be unrealistic depending on dietary and like what you guys like to eat. But if you can find like some things that a decent amount of groceries that you can split, I would highly recommend that. And never leave your house without your student ID. There's so many discounts like out there available for like clothing, even food, just anything. I mean, any discount helps, any coupon, literally anything. So I would say bring your ID places and just ask. It doesn't hurt. The worst they'll say is no. And take advantage of cashback and rewards programs. I've noticed that a lot of like these are very common now. Like I have Fetch Rewards, and there's one I think called Get Upside. That's for like speedways, like on gas. And literally, Fetch Rewards is like where you scan receipts and it can be to anywhere, and you just get like points, and then your points turn into money. So if you're already going to spend money, because that's inevitable, you can scan receipts and just get free money back. So I think those are kind of no brainers. And then also start investing in college. A lot of people think that's like a future, like when I'm older, like Zach was saying kind of earlier, when I make money, but honestly, investing is all about time horizon anyway. That helps a lot, as we've learned. So investing when you're young and investing in, it doesn't have to be a whole lot. Like obviously we don't have a lot of money, but just anything helps. And then have a plan for your classes in degree, just like a return, because every class you add and every like semester you add just adds up to so much. As we know, college is expensive. So just like knowing what you want to do and making sure every class is like what you want to get out of it. And then go out on a budget, kind of just like planning whether you go out to eat, kind of Zach mentioned earlier, like some weeks you might spend more, but like knowing how much you want to spend given a certain scenario is very important to like think about ahead of time, so you're not just going out and being like, oh my god, I have my whole credit card to spend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. So these, I don't know if you guys ever took like a psych class in high school or any point in your college career, but I don't know if you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy. Is basically where you meet kind of one goal and you have to get the lower goals, and they kind of accumulate until you get all the way to the top. So I kind of want to flip this upside down, and we're going to go down. So it's going to go from, let's say psychological is starting at this 401k to maximize employer match, and then we're going to go down to the top of the pyramid. So I should have just flipped that. But basically what you're going to want to start out with, this is where you want to be. You're not going to be able to do every single thing on this list, but starting with the first bullet, this is the minimum you could do to take control of your future. So you have a 401k, and a lot of employers these days will match up to a certain percentage of what you put in to your retirement, and that's free money. So if you just contribute that much to your retirement, just the minimum amount it takes for them to give you free money, why not do it? You're gonna waste an opportunity to get free money if you were to make a contribution under that. So just try and get that employer match, because it's free money and that's going towards your future. They don't have to do it, but they're willing to do it. So take advantage of it. And then once you get that employer match, see if you have the opportunity to take advantage of a health savings account. And this basically allows you to put money in. It's tax advantaged, and you can spend on qualified medical expenses. Say you need to go get a pair of glasses, and you don't want to use your insurance won't cover it. You can just take the money that went into the health savings account and take it right out of there and buy your glasses. So it's something that could help you in terms of medical expenses. If you have eye exams, types of things like that, that maybe you don't want to spend out of like your regular savings account. It's almost just it's a tax advantage way to spend on some of your medical expenses. Emergency fund, this is going to be huge. This is, I don't know if I don't think I hit on the emergency fund yet. It's basically preparing for the unexpected. I'm driving to school and my car breaks down. Now I have to take it in the shop and they say it's going to be $2,000. I'm not going to be you don't want to be the kind of person that sees that $2,000 and you're like, oh no, I don't know what I'm going to do. You want to be the person that 5 months ago, I put away $2,000 in a separate account for someday that was going to happen just like this, some unexpected accident that was going to kind of punch me in the face. So you want to be the person that's going to be prepared for the worst case scenario. You don't want it to just, you want to be you want to be proactive rather than being reactive, I guess. Like I said, pay off that interest, that high interest rate debt. Those credit cards are going to bite you if you don't pay them off quick. They're going to come back later on, and that money that you would have saved by just paying them quick and staying on top of it, it's really going to help you in the long run. And so this is the health savings account for spending versus saving. There's also an FSA, but you actually lose what you put. It's a use it or lose it rule. So the HSAs have been much more popular from just the financial planning courses I've taken and what we've seen. But once you use an HSA, you don't have to spend it in that year. You don't have to worry about losing it the next year. It'll roll over. So once you put it in and you, like I said, you can spend out of it, put some away to save for future medical expenses because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be tax advantage and it's going to be in that account waiting for you to use if you need something in the future. You don't necessarily need a pair of glasses now, but you're like, oh, these aren't stylish. The next 2 years, I'm going to need a more styling pair of glasses like Chauncey's. You'll have that money in your health savings account and you can put it towards that. And then getting I said the minimum to get the 401k match at your employer. Once you do that, you can go past the minimum. You can go, you're making more money, you're further into your career. Why not up that to 8% of your income each year? Like the more you put away, the earlier, the more that compound interest is going to build up, and that savings is going to go straight exponentially. I shouldn't say straight. It's going to just grow exponentially. So sooner the better, and the more you put in, the better. Oops, sorry about that. So then you're going to get your emergency expenses that I said 1 month to begin. That's a good place to start. We don't have a ton of money right now. We're not going to be making a ton of money necessarily right out of school. So once you have 1 month of your bills, your rent, your utilities, all that type of stuff, why not go to 3 months in case you get laid off, you lose your job, you have a cushion that is protecting you for those 3 months. And then go as far as max out your 401k. Like I said, it never hurts to contribute more to your retirement. And then, like I said, these things build off of each other. Once you hit one, it's going to snowball. Go 6 months of spending. You're even more prepared for, who knows, COVID, a pandemic. People got laid off like crazy. If you had an emergency fund, you had something to kind of protect you from that time you were not working, looking for work, and then you finally found a job again. Then you can start over. You can get that 1 month built back up. You don't need to go straight to 6 months. Just start somewhere and have a little bit of cushion for a worst case scenario. And then once you have like your employer plan that they provide for you, why not open up an individual retirement account that you can contribute to as well? And then you can have a taxable account, which I'm not going to get too much into. You can open up like a brokerage account and start investing that way. But basically, I just want you to know when you refer back to this, starting at the top is the bare minimum that you should be doing. And you want to work your way down that list until you're further on in your career and you have the resources available to kind of hit on these things. So here is the example with the how compound interest can work for you. So we have two people here. We have the person who decided he was going to start investing at age 21, and he put $2,400 out of his income every year for 9 years, and then he just completely stopped. So he did not put anything else in after this, and he let compound interest do the work. You have Blake, on the other hand, who didn't start investing until 30, and he invested all the way until he was 67, the same amount, but he had to keep investing that $2,400 for until he was 67 years old. And just because Jack started, look at the difference of what the 2 million, so like 2.5 million over the 1.4. And not only did he have to contribute less and save less, he got to stop. He didn't have to keep going and saving more. So the longer you wait, the more money you're going to have to put away, and the longer you're going to have to contribute. So if you take one thing away, just start early, and you won't have to keep doing it for the rest of your life. So make it easy on yourself and just start early and take advantage of compound interest. So this is super important. I want to hit on this again, what I was talking about with the emergency fund. You just want a rainy day fund just for those expenses that you're not expecting. So I'm not going to go over this super crazy. You can always look at this, but it's just something there that's going to help you when you get an unexpected medical bill, lose your job, maybe when you're really, really far into the future and your parents have to go into a nursing home or something, and it's so expensive that they can't afford to pay for themselves. You'll have money set aside that maybe you can help them out. You don't need to pay for it altogether, but maybe something laying around that is for that emergency that they have to go into some type of care facility. And then another big, it just makes you feel better. I mean, you don't want to be in a spot where you get that expense and it just really takes a toll on you mentally. And it kind of just puts you in a bad place. You just want to have kind of that sense of security. And the last takeaway I would say is it just gets you started to saving. Saving can be really hard when you're used to, I know when we're young, we get a card full of gift cards, or we get money that we know we're going to spend by the end of the week. So we're not really in the mindset that we're going to put that money away and invest it. So this will help you by just saving for those necessities. It's making you save. It's forced savings, and that's going to ultimately improve your savings habits altogether for everything you do going forward. So these are, I'm just going to cover top 10 things to do and then top 10 things not to do, because in school, a lot of people tell you what to do, but they don't tell you what not to do. So the 10, you want to spend less than you make. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Just don't take on that credit card debt. Like Lauren said, don't go out to a restaurant and say, oh, I have $10,000 credit card limit. I'm going to drive it all the way up to 10 grand and I'm going to spend all this money and have a great meal. Just be considerate and just realize that, yeah, you got short-term satisfaction, but in the long term, you're going to be hurting. And when you're planning on getting rich slowly, not necessarily rich, but just in a good spot, it's not you don't want to look at something on some headline that says, pick these stocks and you're going to be rich tomorrow. Don't fall into traps that kind of sound too good to be true. Know that it's a process. Know that you're going to have to budget. Know that you're going to have to save. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's probably going to be many years, but you need to start early in preparation for that actually to happen. And you want to set short-term and long-term goals. So this is huge with, I know, student loans. If you have a small, I know there can be loans that they're just lists and lists. If you have a small loan balance, set a short-term goal to pay down that small balance. And then the more that you pay down, the kind of more the more, I guess, self-fulfillment and achievement you feel like you're actually making a dent. So start with the smaller ones, and it's called the snowball effect, where you're going to get into those bigger ones, but just hit the ones that you can just get out of the way. You get the interest, the interest off of those, so you're not going to have to worry about that later down the road. And then there's the long-term things where you're really looking down the road for retirement. Can I save 1 month of expenses? That's a short term. And then eventually, how can I save 6 months of expenses? Develop a written plan. A lot of the times we say we're going to do something and we don't do it. If you write it down, you're more likely, it's a statistic, you're more likely to actually carry that out. So actually write it down, use one of those apps if you want to start budgeting. But once you have it in front of you, you're more likely to make a routine out of it and keep doing it over and over again. The same thing I said, the save 1/3 of bonuses and raises. This is the same idea as like a tax refund. Save it. You don't need to spend it. You're going to spend 1/3. 1/3 is going to go to taxes, and then you want to save that last third. So right off the bat, you're always going to, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay taxes. So that's always going to be a good chunk out of those savings and the money available to spend. But save that other third, and it'll really help you in the future. Have an emergency fund. We hit on that quite a bit. Don't wait to see that your credit is terrible and like 10 years down the line. Whether you're going to get a rental property, you want to rent from someone, they're going to look at your credit. And if you don't know what your credit is, you're not going to know how to improve it and kind of increase your chances of getting accepted for a loan. Even like a landlord looking at your credibility, you want to know what your credit is so that you know how to improve it then and there. So you can check your credit like twice a year for free. So take advantage of that. Maximize those employer contributions. Just put in that minimum amount that they require into your retirement account that they're going to match for you. And then eventually kind of max out those accounts with your own money. Pay your bills on time. This really, really relates to the credit card balance. Don't put things on credit. They're gonna come back. They're gonna build up. You're gonna pay more in the long run if you just worried about it in the short term. And then a rule of thumb. I know you guys probably were like, when I said how much to save, it depends. A good rule of thumb, like 10 to 15%. I would say, I don't know, I would say 10 to 15 is a good starting point on how much to save of your salary each year when you get out of school. Top 10 things to not to do. Sorry. So don't rely on like your friends and your family to make your investment decisions for you. Trust a professional with that. Don't go to like Uncle Jim and be like, what stocks should I invest in? And then you lose all your retirement savings. Trust someone who's actually in the field and knows what they're doing. Do not look at your friends and where they are in their lives and think, oh, I need to max out my credit card to get the brand new Tesla to drive around because all my friends have brand new cars. Don't worry about the people around you. Focus on yourself and where you want to be. It can be really tempting to look around and be like, see that your friends are maybe in a financially, maybe higher financial status or whatever. Don't worry about it. At the end of the day, you need to worry about yourself. Do not take a credit card. Do not take the cash advance. I mean, they're always gonna figure out ways to take advantage of you. So if something sounds too good to be true, don't do it. And like I said, the huge one, this is going to be the one that you guys can control, especially in college and right after college. Just don't pay the minimum payment on your credit card. Try to knock it out of the park as soon as you can. It's really going to benefit you. I can't hit on that enough. I already said this. plan on gaining financial independence slowly. It's not all going to happen at once. So avoid those big headlines or those ads you see on the internet about how to get rich quick. It's likely going to be a scam. Don't ignore your expenses. Don't I guess put off budgeting. You're not going to know how much you're spending unless you lay it out in front of you. So just really, really monitor what you're spending, what you're bringing in, and it's going to let you be more, I guess, proactive rather than reactive when you look at the end of the month and you're like, wow, I'm down, I'm in debt by $5,000. How this happened? And then rent to own. Leasing is probably a good idea in some situations, but likely you're going to pay more than if you were to just buy it and build equity in something. Don't buy a new car. You can find a car that's, I think, what do they say, Chauncey? A car depreciates by half as soon as you drive it off the lot. So don't buy a brand new 2021 Jeep or something like that. Wait, get last year's model. It's going to be basically the same thing, and it's going to be that much cheaper. Same thing goes for leasing. You have all these requirements. You can't drive over the mileage. You get restrictions for how much you can drive your car, and then they'll charge you for any overages. So just don't just buy a used car. Just honestly buy a used car. And then when you have the money later on in your career and you want to buy a new car, go for it. But right now, it's not really a priority to get kind of those status symbols. And then don't take a lump sum. So you can basically transfer your retirement account if you switch jobs. Sometimes they'll give you the option to do like an indirect rollover, which means they actually pay out what you have in your retirement to you, and you end up having to pay tax on that. Just get in contact with the people who actually, it's called the custodian, and they actually are the people who, like a Fidelity or those big investment companies that you've heard of that manage these accounts. Get in contact with them, and they will shift it directly to, like, if you have a new plan, they'll shift it directly over. You don't want to take it out first. Have them deal with it and do it directly, because as soon as you take that money and you receive it and it's in your hands, you're going to get taxed on it. So try not to take, if they give you the lump sum distribution, don't take it out. Leave it in and figure it out with the custodians. And don't review your investments too often. If you have like a Robinhood account or something like that on your phone, that you get a notification that your investment just tanked and you want to sell out of it. The more you look at your investments, the more irrational you're going to be, and you're likely going to sell something when you didn't need to. Look more long-term, don't look short-term. And then I'll let Chauncey hit on this last one because this can be big. There's apps that do this too now, the payday loans.
Oh yeah, you stay away from a payday loan or like a title loan place. These places are quite unethical and can really get you in interest rates in the hundreds of percents. And they're banned in a lot of states, but there's always schemes to try to give you money now before you actually have it. Just stay away from them. Do whatever you can to avoid those things.
And in other words, there's the apps, even Venmo, if they charge you a fee if you want to transfer the money someone gave you and right now, instead of you wait 1 to 3 days. Wait until if you see like an app and it says, I'm going to give you your paycheck 5 days early, you're going to incur so many fees by the time it's your actual payday that they just took money straight out of your pocket. So try to avoid those. But biggest takeaway is start investing early. Pay off your debt quickly. Don't let it just sit there and accrue that interest. And just really think, I would shift your focus from you don't need to do it all at once, but shifting your perspective to how can I help myself in this moment and satisfy, like provide myself with satisfaction now versus in the long term. So look further down the road and kind of look more into the future rather than just the right now. But other than that, that is all I have for you guys. So yeah.
Thank you so much to everyone. That was super informative and super helpful. I did see that Renee put in the chat that you guys are able to ask questions. We did have one person ask if you would recommend a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA.
That's a good question. That's also a depends question, because if you basically with the Roth, you're going to pay tax in the year you put the contribution into the account. So let's say you're expecting, this would be probably a scenario, you get out of college, you're not making that much, you're not going to be in a high tax bracket. Maybe you can afford to just pay that really low tax and put it in the Roth, as opposed to the traditional where maybe you're still working when you are in a higher tax bracket. And with the traditional, it gets taxed when you take it out, not when you put it in. So if you're in a higher tax bracket, you're going to get taxed more when it comes out. So if you're not making much and you're at a lower income job than you expect to be in the future, it makes more sense probably to do the Roth. You can do both. You don't need to you can put a little on a Roth and you can put a little bit in the traditional. But it has to depend. We talked about the variables. So if you expect to make more in the future, you're probably not going to want to pay the tax right then and there, because when you retire and you start taking it out, you're not going to get taxed as much because you're not making any income. You're retired, your tax bracket's going to be lower, and it's probably going to make more sense for the traditional. So it depends on where you are in your time horizon, I guess I would say.
Right, thank you.
I have another question. So when we say like to open up an emergency fund, so is that like opening up a separate, like a bank account?
So it could be like it could be like a very, it'd be like a savings account, and it would be just very conservatively like maybe even like a money market account or something like that, where it's really, really, I would say pretty close to risk-free. You might earn like a very little interest, like your bank account or something like that, but it's not going to be like your brokerage account where you're investing in stocks and companies that you have no idea what their future looks like. It's going to be like a very conservatively invested savings account.
So so would you recommend kind of like staying within one bank?
I mean, you could honestly just put it in your savings account. You could have 3 to 6 months in your savings account, and you say, I'm not going to touch that for anything else other than to pay those unincurred or unexpected expenses. So just stick with the bank you have now. There's no need to go somewhere else and kind of make things more complicated than they need to be.
Okay. Also, I noticed like earlier when you talked about for the apps to track your spending in your bank account, they usually have like a spending summary. So that also shows you where your money went.
Yeah, so a lot of these, where'd it go? So a lot of these, they'll show like a pie chart, and they'll separate it into like entertainment, like that'd be like going out to eat, things like that, utilities, rent, and it'll split it up into a pie chart. So it's really easy to see like, where am I spending more? Maybe where should I be spending less? And I'm not spending enough towards retirement. So I'm gonna spend less on this big chunk of the pie chart and increase the piece of the pie that it would be my retirement savings or something like that.
All right, well, if that's all of the questions we have, thank you so much to our presenters. This was so incredibly informative. Catch up with us next week for another financial literacy workshop, same time next Thursday. And then also every Friday, we have Financial Fridays, which I don't know if you've seen, are live 10 to 30-minute conversations about different financial topics every week. So the Instagram handle for the UA is in the chat. This will be recorded and placed on the UA webpage under the NAS website. So check back on our Instagram for instructions of how to access this recording. And thank you for joining us. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
I can't. Hold on.
Right.
Wait, are you stopping the recording?
Yes.
And I hope it didn't, nothing gets messed up because I started